will get no viewers, and that's totally fine. All right.
I'm okay with that. I need to practice without viewers.
Yeah, so we're live. So what I'm trying to figure out is, like, I don't really want to have, like, the intro feels awkward, but like, hey, well, hello and welcome. You know, I don't want to do that shit, you know? And so, you know, like Rogan, right?
To the Blaine Nicholls show.
Exactly. And I did that, and I don't like it. So, you know, and it's just like, let's talk.
Yeah.
You know, Rogan, they usually start, they're already mid-conversation. Mark Maron does that on WTF as well. So,
well, he's got a really good intro song going on, you know. Joe Rogan podcast.
Yes, absolutely. I do need to get a really solid intro song. I don't know if I can actually play it at the beginning of this or not, with this software.
Well, because I guess his isn't a song, but yeah, any kind of intro at all, you know.
Then again,
20 seconds.
These guys that I watch that do the, like, analysis of the game Diplomacy that I play, they'll be going live tomorrow, and they had this. I think they use the same setup, but they had this whole intro, which I was like, dang, they put a lot of work into this fucking intro, and I didn't see that coming. So I need to get one of those. I'll figure it out. Right now, I'm just trying to figure out the edit itself. Like, you saw, like, how I had laid a lot of this stuff out. That the YouTube one actually got zoomed in quite a bit. So you lose some of the design that I have on there, but I've been playing with it a lot, and I've been templatizing it so that I can cut it more quickly, which I think is going to be cool. But we got Cecil Trail on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
How are you, Cecil? I actually really love your frame. Look at this; it looks beautiful. I hadn't really looked around.
Put a little bit of thought into it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, thanks, man.
A little feng shui.
You got a little Dune up there.
Oh, awesome! Oh, fuck! You're showing me up now.
Conversation.
I don't even own the book. I've read it, but I own it on Kindle.
My feng shui. I'm loving your studio scene right now.
Thank you.
It's good. I want to be sitting in that chair, to be honest, behind you.
Yeah. Actually, I need to clean that up. 1 second.
Yeah.
You know, it's got to be a little bit more, a little neater with the blanket. You know, Bart was sitting there yesterday. You know,
good old Bart.
All right. Well, okay. So you've got the book Dune behind you. So, what do you think of the adaptation of Dune into
as
film?
a whole? I'm gonna start by clarifying that I'm including parts 1 and 2 together.
Of course.
For this answer, but yeah, I love it. I think that, especially if you compare it to the only other comparison, the 1980s film, that was it's so funny when you ask people who have seen that old one, who like grew up in that time when it first came out, they are so nostalgic about it, and they love the older generations. Yeah,
I don't know anyone who's seen it. I mean, I haven't asked my dad. I guess he might have seen it back in the day, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe at the time that it came out, it might have been doing some things that hadn't been done before, but it doesn't hold up if you watch it today at all.
Oh yeah.
And so that being like the only comparison, I mean, obviously this Dune blows that out of the water. But as a whole, I mean, I really think that they stuck true to Frank Herbert's vision.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that they did a really, really good job. I mean, it's such a hard book. You know, Megan, she always talks about how, like, it's nothing happens in the book, right? And like, it's mostly just him in the desert. And I think that they did a good job of. I think what I disliked most about the book is that when there was action, it lasted like half a page. You know, there's a whole battle that he summarizes in half a page, and then it's back to just they're in the desert. And so I think they did a good job of, like, you know, taking the scale that does happen in the book, but actually showing it and letting it really shine. I thought I think I can't decide which movie I like better. Um, to be honest with you, I think I love both of them quite a lot, and I think that the first one, I think what I love the most about the first one is how good how well they did the exposition. There's so much world building that needs to be done, so much that they need to tell you about, what is spice and what is the relationship between the Harkonnens and the Atreides, and why is the Emperor playing a role? Like, what is all those dynamics, and who
Yeah.
are the Fremen, and like I love I think I love the most is the way they do the like he's watching those videos in the first one that are like kind of telling him about Arrakis before he goes,
Yeah.
and
Which is in the
like,
books.
is it? I
Yeah.
haven't read the book
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
so long, I don't remember, but yeah.
Yeah. No,
Um,
it's very similar to what's in the book,
okay,
which is nice.
good.
In fact, like the way that they did it versus like I think I remember the old 1980s one was like an old PowerPoint projection kind of thing.
Sure.
And this is kind of similar, but just having that I think he has like a little tiny projection box.
Yeah,
Which I don't know, just the way that it worked with the hologram too. It worked
yeah,
really well. And that's how they described it in the book. Um, was holograms.
okay. Yeah, and
So
I think
yeah.
I don't know if it's this way in the book, but the way when the hunter killer thing comes and
Mm,
flies through it, and he, like, hides
so
in the
good. Yeah.
rays of the projector, and then it flies at
Yeah.
him, like, that is such an awesome way to do that, and, like, the story is still playing, like, context is still being set while all that is happening. I thought that
Yeah.
was so good.
I mean that for most people that's like lost, you know.
Sure.
You're not listening to what's going on. You're paying attention to this little mosquito thing that's
Totally.
coming at his eyeball. But
Yeah. But I think the only thing, that they changed, like, the biggest thing they changed is obviously, like, Chani's relationship to, um
yeah, well, that and I feel like the the telling of Paul's story did not like it didn't feel like it was ever really told through his eyes. It's told through other people's eyes. And in the book, you're so in it that you're seeing the story through Paul's eyes, right?
yeah,
And you're in his head constantly. But I feel like the movies kind of tell Paul's story through Johnny and Jessica, sometimes Stilgar. I feel like that happens rather often.
sure.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's definitely, true. Okay, I need to turn that sound off. But, yeah, I think they definitely give those characters their time, right? Like Jessica has her own distinct storyline. You're very much like it's very like you said, it like almost feels like it's from her perspective at moments of seeing her go through it, and especially in the second one. I feel like she really kind of becomes her own character in the second one, um, which I really liked. And Stilgar, I was blown. It cracked me up how much humor's at the beginning of the second movie with Stilgar.
Yeah, that was interesting. I didn't really I don't remember that being his character
Yeah,
in the book at all. Like I feel like like Dune Part 1 really captured the character and his personality. And then
yeah,
Dune Part 2 felt like I mean honestly watching it I was a little peeved. Just I don't know. I was going back and forth because I appreciated the humor. I really did. And Javier Bardem is just an incredible actor. So
knocks out of the
watching
park.
him, yeah, it's great. But then at the same time, I don't think Stilgar was that humorous in the books, at least not from what I remember. And um, I kind of felt like a producer gave the note of oh, we need to make Stilgar funnier. Like his audience rating is not as high as we want it to be, or something. So we need
Interesting.
to give him some more humorous lines. And I have no idea if that was the case or not. That's what ran through my brain, having been through the process a little bit, or been surrounded by the process, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, because it's also an odd tonal shift. That's was I think what struck me the most watching the first movie, or the second movie for the first time, was I was like thinking of the ending of the first, and then the beginning of the second has so much humor in it. I'm just like, the ending was so serious. The ending of the first was so serious, and then the beginning of the second is like really funny, and it's like, maybe part of that is the passage of time, maybe that's part of what he's trying to do there. But it is like an interesting choice to have such a strong tonal shift. And I wonder, if you truly watched them as one movie, how that transition would feel. Would it be a little bit jarring? I'm not sure.
I think it will be. I'm excited to watch them back to back.
I did that the other day, but I
it's
got
going to be a
so
little jarring,
high.
for sure.
I was so high, I don't remember it, which I probably shouldn't say
Probably.
live on the internet. But I do live in Washington State,
one
so
cares. Yeah, fine. Your employer doesn't care.
That's valid.
You get shit done.
But yeah, I think the Chani thing is really interesting. The distinction between her character in the book and in the movie, where she is like very much against his the prophecy, and having it be something that defines, like, or she just doesn't want the prophecy to come true. Essentially, everybody else around her is like, worshiping him and starting to kind of fall in line, and she's the voice. I've heard it put as like, she's like the voice of the audience, saying, hey, this is a bad thing. And so we're just like a voice telling the audience, hey, what Paul's doing here is not good.
Yeah.
Because it's very
I think
easy,
that's
very
I
easy.
think that's sorry, fuck. No, that's a good distinction, saying that it's not the voice of the audience, but a voice to the audience.
Yeah.
Because I think as the audience, we're sitting there rooting for Paul.
Right. Exactly. And this is them saying, hey, this isn't a good guy. Yes, he's the like lead of this film. That doesn't mean he's a hero. And I think that's like something I've seen a lot on the internet since the movie came out. There's a lot of people who are like talking about, oh, this is just another white savior movie, and they're really glorifying, this. And it's like, that's exactly the opposite of what's going on. Like, literally, it's like a criticism on colonialism, essentially, like just really painting him as a bad guy. And they really show it. I mean, after he drinks that blue liquid, like, he is straight up Darth Vader the rest of the movie. Like, the music that plays when he walks in, the silhouettes, the way they shoot him with his cape flowing in the air, and then he does that fucking epic speech. Like, he goes full Darth Vader, and I think Darth Vader was like Luke Skywalker was very much based on that character, so that's part of it. But I really love how far they go to really push that, but you still find yourself rooting for him. It's impossible not to.
Yeah, and I think that Villeneuve did a great job at putting that in there, because you don't really get a sense of it when you're reading the book as much.
Right.
Which I think you told me, we had this conversation last week or something. You said that Dune Messiah, the sequel, really lays into that whole concept. And didn't you mention that that you read that Frank Herbert was upset at the response to the first one?
Yeah, that's what I heard, is that he was upset that everybody thought that Paul was a hero, and that he was such a someone to be rooted for. And so his reaction to that was Dune Messiah, to really like drive home, like, no, everything he's doing is leading to pain and suffering across the universe. Like that's essentially what it is.
And that's one thing as a film director, especially when you're adapting a series and if you don't know that the sequel is going to be made, um, kind of inserting a bit of the sequel into the end of the first.
yeah,
I think that there might have been a little bit of that, but
it's
I
interesting.
think it worked out. I think it was the smart way to go.
Yeah, I mean, spoilers for Dune Messiah a bit, and tell me if you don't want me to give you those at all. But
No, that's okay. No, that's fine.
like,
I'm
it's
gonna
going to
read
be
it
interesting to
anyway.
see how they adjust because Chani is obviously a major character in Dune Messiah, and she's still in love with Paul, and they are together. Dune Messiah jumps ahead 12 years. They're still together. He's with Irulan as well, the princess, but they don't really have a relationship. You know, they kind of hate each other. And so he's still in love with Chani, trying to have a baby with Chani. That's kind of what Dune Messiah is about overall. And so Chani leaving at the end of Dune 2, you're a little bit like I'm very curious how this is going to go. I did see something around like there's that flash forward that Paul has. He has like a vision of them in a ship. I think they're over Caladan, and they're like the ship is open and they're standing in the back of it, and it's like him and Chani staring down, watching like an invasion of the planet or something like that.
I'm
And
sorry, that's in the book.
in Dune 2, in the movie.
That's in part 2.
Yeah, it's a flash. I just saw it online, and I remember the shot.
Yeah.
I can see if I can
Okay.
find it, but it's
Yeah.
like so. They were talking about how that kind of implies that they are going to find a way to get them back together.
Yeah.
But I just think it's going to be he clearly would have intentionally made that choice, knowing what he was going to do about it when it comes to Doom Messiah, because their relationship's so central to that movie. That he must be thinking about changing it a bit. I had heard, oh, maybe they're going to combine the third book as well, but the third book, I haven't read it yet, but it's called Children of Dune, and I think it's later. Like I don't think it's about Paul and Chani
Like a couple hundred years down the road type thing.
Messiah, not 100, from how Messiah ends. My guess is it's another 30 years down the line, but it's not about them. So I don't think that he can really pull from that. I did hear that there's a book that was written by Frank Herbert's son after Frank Herbert died, that is like Dune lore, or it's basically fills in the years between Dune 2 and Dune Messiah, because there's a 12-year gap. And so maybe he's going to incorporate some of that into Dune 3.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it'll be interesting.
Children of Dune was a miniseries in 2003.
I know they've tried to make a lot of things. Yeah, Children of Dune is going to be about Paul and Chani's children. That's why it's called
Okay,
Children.
so it's 9 years.
9 years later.
After. Yeah,
which is funny. These books, it's like Game of Thrones. Like they're always children in the books, and then you watch the show, and they've got to obviously they got to cast adult actors. They're not going to just have kids be the leads of these shows or movies.
Yeah.
Like Paul in this book is supposed to be like 16, 17.
Yeah, 15 or 16, right. Something like that.
Yeah. And then in Dune Messiah, his sister is like 15 or 16. But it's going to be played by, oh God, what's her name? God, names are going to be death me on this.
Well, at the end of part 2, it was the woman from
that
Queen's
chess
Gambit.
Right? Queen's Gambit, exactly.
I have the
IMDb up, but she's not right on the top. I'm looking at Dune 1. That's why.
I'm always so terrible with names also.
Oh yeah, I'm awful.
I can't remember people's names. I have to see it 1,000 times before I even put it in my head. Isn't it Anya something?
Anya Taylor-Joy, that's her name.
Is that it?
Anya got me there, but I'm pretty sure that's her name. And I can't find her name on this list of cast members, but I'm
I know.
pretty sure.
I don't understand why it's not on the list. It's a pretty big name to be on there. Although I guess the list,
Yeah, it is
cast
Anya.
has a lot of big names. So,
oh yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things about it. I was thinking about that before we hopped on. Like one of my favorite things about this movie is just how every role is played by a badass. Like one of my favorite parts of the movie is actually her name's Léa Seydoux. She's like the French actress from Blue is the Warmest Color, and she's the one that kind of seduces Fade Rafa,
she's
the
great.
Bene Gesserit. I mean, she is just a beast. I enjoyed that scene so much because it was just those two. I think Austin Butler is the like breakout star in this movie, right? Like he just, I mean, he already has been a breakout star, obviously, but like,
of course.
My goodness, he crushed this movie. And so those two, I think, were just the tension between those two was so palpable in that scene that I was just like grinning ear to ear throughout it.
Well, and also okay, so that scene specifically was right after the photo negative scene, correct?
Yeah,
Which was, so captivating, that entire scene.
Yeah, they shot it with infrared light, Did you hear about that?
No,
That's
I
how
didn't.
they did
I
that.
didn't read about how they shot it.
So they shot it with infrared light. I heard that they
would be so upset with me.
I heard they had a like the costumes were black and they were showing up on camera as white. And so they had to go and redo the costumes to be able to work under that light, because he wanted to shoot it in black and white, but he wanted it to he wanted that glow, and so that's why they did it that way. Because I guess that planet has a black sun, the Harkonnens planet. So, and that's kind of where that all was coming from. But yeah, I think that effect was so awesome, and that scene was so epic. Definitely great to watch. The thing with Austin Butler that I loved was the way he like replicated Stellan Skarsgård's accent or his voice. And it's not his accent.
Honestly, I thought that it was one of the Skarsgårds at first.
Yeah. I'm almost surprised they didn't cast Skarsgård. Oh yeah. I'm not sure his name.
Looking it up right now.
But yeah, I'm kind of surprised they didn't cast him in the Skarsgård.
It's Bill Skarsgård. But no, I agree. I think that gosh, I'm looking at their pictures side to side. It's I mean, it's close enough that especially with the makeup on Austin Butler and Bill Skarsgård.
Oh yeah, they're not. Yeah, they do look pretty similar.
Yeah, they're similar enough for sure. But yeah, so with all that makeup on and his like you said, his inflections of catching Senior Skarsgård's voice was really spot on.
And it really was just like little pieces that he like sprinkled in throughout. Like his voice was still distinct in his own, but he had little moments that would bleed in where you just heard, oh yeah, this guy is related to that guy clearly. I thought it was so awesome. And then he was just sadistic as fuck, just killing people indiscriminately. It's like, oh yeah, this is knife sharp enough. Boom, done.
Yeah,
it's wild.
That character is written that way, but just seeing it acted out is a whole different thing.
Oh
yeah, it's really well done.
What else? What is another one of your favorite parts of the movie?
Well, I have a hot take.
Oh, I would love to hear a hot take.
My hot take that I haven't heard yet, because everybody has been so obsessively pining over Dune 2, Part 2, which, it earned. However, I still think that Dune Part 1 is the better of the two.
Yeah. All
Yeah,
right. Tell me about that.
that's just me. Well, I think a lot of it comes down to originality and novelty. Like when the first Dune came out, the people that went to see it and that were most excited about it were the people I think for the most part were the people who were already fans of Dune and who had read the books and for those that didn't know anything about the lore, it was probably slightly confusing. I wouldn't know for sure. I wasn't one of those people. Although some of my family members that went to see it hadn't read the books and they still really liked the movie.
Yeah.
And I just rewatching it last night, I was like, man, this movie really is a powerful film.
Yeah.
It just the majesty of everything. It's epic. And I think especially for me when the first Dune came out, I hadn't really seen any movies like it in a very long time. The last major epic film that not only was shot beautifully but had great storylines or great storytelling and great plot lines and then actual good dialogue um, with throwing all of the detail that Dune throws into costumes and everything. I don't know, maybe Prometheus. That was kind of
Mm.
on a grand scale. Maybe Interstellar.
Sure.
Maybe maybe one of the Batman films.
Yeah.
But
But
Christopher Nolan
they don't even
died.
have as much. They don't even have as much they have to tackle in those. I feel like.
No, and that's the thing is, yeah.
I feel like it's.
I
I feel like Lord of the Rings is
what's
the
the
best
last
comparison.
major space odyssey, space opera would
Yeah.
be one of the Star Wars films,
Sure.
possibly, or there's a few space operas that did terribly. Um, Valerian was one,
Hmm.
and which was a great comic
Oh
series,
yeah, I
graphic
remember that.
novel
Yeah.
series,
Yeah.
but then they destroyed the movie. It just did not work out. And then the other one was that the Channing Tatum one with
Hmm.
Mila
I
Mila
thought
Kunis.
I thought that was Valerian, but that's yeah. That was the one I was thinking
Yeah.
of. I don't know what that's
Oh,
called.
okay. Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Hmm.
But that one was kind of fun. But yeah, just having a major sci-fi epic film that is of that scale and quality. I haven't seen that outside of television since I don't know, like Lord of the Rings, high fantasy.
Yeah.
That's done that well, I mean, sure, there have been a few others that were okay, like all of the Star Wars that came out, pretty dang good
Sure.
by some standards, not so good by other standards, I guess.
Yeah. I
That's
think
a whole
that.
other kind of conversation that we don't need to get into right now. But I the Star Wars films were already like the canon was already out there.
Yeah.
With Dune, like their Dune's fan base was a lot smaller than any of the Star Wars films that came out had to deal with. So I feel like Dune 1 created this much larger fan base for Dune, which I don't know. I don't know why that would be. Maybe
I
just
mean,
advertising in general, maybe because the movie was so damn good that the
yeah.
sequel was gonna be just as good.
I do think it's a masterpiece, and I think that is a big reason why. I think the difference between what you see with Dune and like the newer Star Wars movies is really just the level of artistry that went into it and the level of um, care I mean, you've got Hans Zimmer doing the score. You've got, I mean, I think, and Denis Villeneuve has been my favorite director for a long time, but I think that, so I may be biased, but my opinion is that Denis Villeneuve is the best director working in Hollywood right now, and he was before these movies. And so you got him to come in and craft the world. He also wrote the screenplay with someone else, but like the amount of care that he put into it, I'm sure, I don't know who his cinematographer was on this, but you know, that guy clearly knocks it out of the park as well. And I think that it is an artistic film in a way that like the Star Wars type movies just aren't, in a way that it's more, where I think that Interstellar is almost a better comparison than the Star Wars movies. Or Lord of the Rings is probably, especially now that there's two, like Lord of the Rings, I think is clearly the best analog between this and that. I mean, other than maybe the original Star Wars, as far as like scale. But so I think it won a lot more fans of Dune because of its merit. Like, I think that it is that good. But I also have been very conflicted on which movie is better. I have this soft spot for the first one for sure. I think I watched the first one in theaters, liked it, and then it came out on HBO at the same time. Remember, it was like streaming at the same time that it came out in theaters, and so then I watched it again like a couple days later at home, and that was when it really locked in for me. I was like, oh my God, this movie's incredible. Like because I was watching it with a different lens. I was like paying attention to the things like the exposition and how the story was unfolding, and just little things that he does throughout that movie. And that's when it really hit home for me. And I think I've been trying to get that again with Dune 2, because I've watched it twice now. But
it's a little more difficult when you're in the theater, though, I think.
Yeah. And the second time I saw it, as I said earlier, I was just stoned out of my mind. So I don't know if that really was going to give me the like that I was hoping for. You know?
Yeah, maybe not.
But yeah, so I think if I a gun to my head, I got to pick one, I think I would pick the first. But then I'm like, man, the scale of the second.
Yeah.
It's just, the second is on another level of scale.
I really need to watch the second one. Sorry, I'm trying to fix a light here. I need to rewatch the second one.
Oh.
Rewatch.
Hey, how are we having this conversation?
No. I wish we would have done this sooner. And we planned on having this conversation like the week that the second one came out, and just didn't, we didn't meet up for it, unfortunately, because it was very fresh in my head. But yeah, Dune 2 had a huge impact on me as well. I mean, being honest, though, I think it's difficult to even make a comparison, because really they're the same film.
Right.
Totally. I mean, you talk about Dune Part 1, Dune Part 2, it's really just Dune.
Sure.
The biggest difference being that slight tonal shift, I think.
Yeah.
I think the tonal shift between the end of the first one and the beginning of the second one is a little bit of a chasm.
I don't know. It's interesting because now that you say it, I think of the beginning of the first one actually had a little bit they were trying to add humor in there as well, where there's like, he's like, smile, Gurney, I am smiling, that kind of, they did have little moments that they were trying to make funny, to try to keep it a little
to be
light.
fair, though, I think that, so if I remember correctly from the books, Gurney was that character that brought levity and humor to the situation, and he was written to be a little bit more Shakespearean even. And he's basically a bard, if you think of Dune in D&D style, like he's got his little lute. And he carries like his little lute, and in the books, he pretty much speaks in Shakespearean riddles. and
Yeah.
quotes from Shakespearean style writings, whatever those were. Um, and they had a little bit of that with Brolin, but
Yeah.
if they had more, they cut it out. And I do kind of wish they had a little bit more levity from him, from his character. But there was, the movie's 2.5 hours long. I'm sure
Yeah.
they had to cut a bunch of stuff out.
Yeah, I
Um,
think they did. I know there's that guy that plays the Mentat in the first one.
yeah,
And
I read about them cutting him out
yeah, I heard
of the second one.
I heard an interview where he was like talking about how much he loved working with Austin Butler and all this stuff, and he just got completely cut out of the movie.
Yeah.
Which I also heard Denny Villeneuve said it was like the hardest thing he's ever done was to cut him from the movie, but he felt he had to.
Yeah, I read that too. I think his reasoning made sense.
Yeah.
But it, kind of similar reasoning as to, well, I guess it derives from the perspective of telling the story, right? Because he kind of switched the perspectives that you're seeing the story through, um, Johnny's eyes and Jessica's eyes, um, and I wish I had that article up. Do you remember why exactly he wanted to cut all of the mentats?
I didn't hear a reason why he wanted to cut the Mentats specifically. I just
Yeah.
heard that he didn't want to include them as much. Maybe he
Yeah.
just didn't want to get into it. Like it's kind of like a
No, he had a very specific thing about
yeah.
how his telling of the story from the perspectives that he was telling from was different from the book. And so because of that, he felt like all the mentats needed to be cut. And there was a couple others, right? Um, that were in the book that weren't in the movie. And then the other actor that got cut, that guy from Buster Scruggs. Remember that Buster Scruggs series
Yeah.
on Netflix? The guy that opens up, um, Buster Scruggs. What do we got here? Sorry. You didn't hear about him getting cut?
I don't know who we're talking about, to be honest with you.
We are talking about Tim Blake Nelson. He had a couple scenes in Dune Part 2, and they just cut him out completely. They didn't even use him.
He was in Dune 1?
No, he was in Dune 2. He played I thought he played another Mentat. And that's who Denis Villeneuve said he was heartbroken about cutting out.
Not Tim Blake Nelson.
Tim Blake Nelson, yeah.
No. He was heartbroken again about no, that's not him. Hawat. Through Fear Hawat. Stephen McKinley Henderson. That's who I read that he was heartbroken about cutting out.
Oh, okay. So I'm reading a Deadline article, and it kind of it throws both of them into the article. I guess it's a little confusing who he was heartbroken about, but okay. So this says that Villeneuve said one of the most painful choices for me on this one was Thufir Hawat. He's a character I absolutely love, but I decided at the beginning that I was making a Bene Gesserit adaptation. That meant that mentats are not as present as they should be, but it's the nature of the adaptation.
Interesting.
And then the article goes on to talk about Tim Blake Nelson joined the cast, but never appeared in the movie. And he said in an interview, "I don't think I'm at liberty to say what the scene was. I'd leave that to Denis if he wants to talk about it. I had a great time over there shooting it." And then he had to cut it because he thought the movie was too long. Nelson continued, "I am heartbroken over that, but there's no hard feelings. I loved it, and I can't wait to do something else with him. And we certainly plan to do that." So the heartbroken line came from Tim Blake Nelson.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, these
I mean,
yeah.
anyone would be heartbroken to be cut out of Dune.
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me?
That'd be tough.
Yeah.
It's not quite as bad as what was it? Thin Red Line. Jim Caviezel. I guess he got made the main character. I think.
Didn't hear about that.
There's the movie Thin Red Line was supposed to have someone else was supposed to be the lead.
Good movie.
Like they shot the entire movie. Let me see if I can find this real quick, and then I'll give you a quick summary. Maybe it was. Go ahead.
I need to grab something downstairs. We
Cool.
can cut this later.
Let's take a little break. I'm gonna get a drink.
Yeah, a couple minutes.
How are we? You're on mute. Can you hear me? You're talking to someone else? He's talking to someone else.
You're still here? She did.
And we're back.
Yeah. So Thin Red Line, right?
Yeah.
Adrian Brody was cast as the lead of Thin Red Line, and they shot the entire movie with him thinking that he was the lead. And then in the edit, the director decided to switch it and cut him almost entirely out of the movie and made Jim Caviezel the lead of the movie. And the movie came out, and that's Adrian Brody found out when the movie was premiered that he was no longer the lead of the movie. And a bunch of other people were cut out of it too. Gary Oldman was cut out of it. Mickey Rourke. Let's see, who was it? George Clooney was cut out of the movie.
Wow.
There were a bunch of people in it, and Terrence Malick just said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna cut out all these motherfuckers," and probably made Jim Caviezel's career. You know, like it's like that's early on in his career, and just that's a great example of in post being able to just drastically change what a movie is. And man, Adrian Brody, I can't imagine how hot he must have been coming out of that premiere. Like he's in a tux, you know, he thought this was his star moment. He had to go and wait for The Pianist. You know, like oh my God, he must have been
Was
furious.
that his next big film, The Pianist?
I don't know. The Pianist is just what I think of as like Adrian Brody's like huge movie, right? Like he won Best Actor for that, I believe, you know. But
I never watched it.
I don't remember it really at all. I just know that story. Why were we talking about that? We were talking about people getting cut out of Dune. Oh, so okay. What I was just thinking about talking about was I love Dune. I love both of them, but I do want to talk about some of the things that I see as like problems in this movie.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
I
think we've kissed Villeneuve's ass enough. We can.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kiss Villeneuve's ass all day. I think he's the greatest director living. I think that Arrival is one of the best movies I've ever seen. His whole filmography is amazing. But let's talk about some of the problems in Dune. We've got one of the things I wanted to bring up was when they attack the spice. I don't know what are those called. Generator, like the big machines that are harvesting.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
When they attack the spice harvesters, they all bury themselves under the sand, and then they come running. And look, that scene's amazing. I think that scene is so awesome. They're like fighting the Sardaukar that are guarding it. Then they're like hiding under the arm and fighting the Thopter up in the air, shooting that shit down. Like I really enjoyed it. But then, first of all, a bunch of Fremen must have died during that. And then after they shoot down the Thopter, they have these like lasers that shoot into the spice harvester. And they cut it in half and it explodes. And I'm like, why didn't you just use the fucking lasers? Like we could just use these lasers and not have to have anybody die.
Wait, the lasers were used against the Fremen.
No, they use them, they shoot them, and they like carve through the spice harvesters. I mean, I wish I had Dune 2 so I could show what I'm talking about.
Because so they use the lasers. The Fremen use the lasers against the harvesters, and then later on, when Austin Butler's character Feyd Harkonnen,
Feyd Rautha,
Feyd Rautha, when he takes over Guardians of the Galaxy dude, what's that guy's
Beast
name?
Rabban is the character's name, but it is
Beast. When he takes over Batista, yeah, that's right. How can I forget that? So when he takes over for that character, he just immediately starts bombarding a mountainside. Right. And is that just artillery or was that lasers? Because I'm getting those mixed up in my head, I think.
I don't know. I forget if they definitely use artillery for sure. Because there's even that line Skarsgård says, like, he says, artillery, genius, something like that. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, it's not that difficult.
So I just remembered I watched the first one last night, and in the first one, the Sardaukar use a small laser to take out a door, kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi style. you know,
Yep.
and that small little blue laser goes all the way through.
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, were the lasers you're talking about in Dune Part 2 blue lasers as well?
Yeah. They are blue lasers.
Large blue
I don't
cannon
know
lasers. Yeah.
where. Yeah, it feels like it's got to be like a shoulder-mounted cannon laser thing. Because it's
Yeah.
probably like, I mean, it's a pretty good size
So
beam.
they're basically smuggling all their weapons in because they're not making their weapons on world. They're stealing them from the Sardaukar, from the
Maybe,
Harkonnens, from
maybe,
the
but
Atreides.
also like they're clearly kind of an advanced society as well. I mean, they're able to manufacture their own still suits and like
Yeah.
other
That's one thing I
weaponry.
would like to see actually is I know it sounds kind of boring, but I wouldn't have minded seeing the industrialization
Yeah,
of the society. I think that
yeah,
would have been kind of cool instead of like, oh yeah, all of these people are cave rats kind of feeling, you know.
right.
It's like, oh yeah, they're all cave dwellers and I mean that's clear from the first movie is that's what everybody coming in thinks of them is
Yeah,
that they're just these desert dweller cave rat kind of people that don't really have a huge society or anything, but then clearly like they really do. I would have loved to see that in the second one. I would have
yeah,
loved to see more industrialization under the caverns, under the
yeah,
rock.
yeah. They definitely. I mean, they talk about the scale of like the size of the civilization that's living in the South, right? Like there's millions of Fremen in the South.
Yeah.
But yeah, they don't really show it much. The most you get of it is those little scenes when he goes to the South. There's a lot of people, right? But it's not any more advanced. It doesn't feel any more advanced than any other part of it. So I don't know where they got the weapon, but they do have this like laser weapon. Because then it goes through after they do that harvester attack scene. Then it goes through like a series of like a montage of them attacking the different harvesters. And there's parts where they are just it seems like using the lasers. So why put all of your people on the front lines
Yeah.
to fight a bunch of things. Like I maybe you needed to get rid of that thopter, but you can just shoot that with a laser as well. I guess it has a shield, so that wouldn't have worked. But it's not that
Yeah.
dangerous of
Are
a
the lasers short term? Do they only work for like 5
yeah.
seconds or something? Be really interesting to find that out.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's one thing that irked me. You have any?
A lot of the things that we've touched on them a little bit. The tonal shift was a big one for me
Sure.
between Dune 1 and Dune 2. Uh, Stilgar suddenly becoming this humorous figure of
Yeah.
levity, you know, that he wasn't beforehand. Which I mean, I get the concept that time has gone by and he and Paul are friends now, and he thinks Paul is going to lead his people to salvation. But it also, personally, I just felt like there was, well, okay, so this would be two things then. It was the combination of that character's levity not making sense
Mm,
because I didn't feel like there was an appropriate showing of passage of time.
yeah.
Which in the books it's so easy to do that, you know, you just that's done in a paragraph or two,
Yeah.
right? But
You can say
uh
the words. 2 years passed, or,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And
Um
and they have a kid. His sister is born in the book. Like
yeah, yeah.
there's his sister grows up. I think she's like 3 or 4. You're like,
Well, yeah, his sister's like a weird thing though, because
yeah,
she's
she
like an
ages
adult.
quickly.
She's
Yeah, she
like
can.
she's
Yeah,
like 100 adults in one
yeah,
little 5-year-old,
totally.
which that could have been cool. I don't
But it
know
could have
if that
been rough.
it could have been rough. Yeah,
It
but
could have
there's
been rough.
enough child actors out there that do a pretty damn good job, I
That's
think.
true. That's
Um,
true.
you know,
I think I kind of feel they made the right decision on that front.
I don't blame him for that decision, and I think
You
it
know?
worked just fine.
Yeah.
It didn't piss me off. Like I said, there's other things that kind of rub me the wrong way. much more than that did.
It allowed you to have also Lady Jessica be like her own star. Like, I mean, I think she is one of the best parts of Dune
Yeah.
too. Her performance is so
Yeah.
so good.
Well, I mean, Rebecca Ferguson is
Yeah.
outstanding in the first one. I would
Oh,
watching
yeah.
the first one and watching her play a mother to Paul and be frightened for him while also trying to, you know, teach him and train him. That she's just so incredible at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
And
was
her character's journey from the beginning of 1 to the end of 2 is one of the most transformative, and like her, I think she is one of the best parts of probably both movies. Totally, like I think her character
Yeah.
steals the show at certain parts of the movie. I think that
Yeah.
another like qualm I have, and it's not a big qualm, I give them a pass for it, but I think that like you've got your two essentially leads, or at least the way they sold them as the two leads of Chalamet and Zendaya. Like, I think that they probably have the weakest performances of the movie, especially I would say maybe Zendaya, where sometimes I just don't buy it. I'm just like,
Yeah, we're on the same page with that. I like her as an actress and I think she does a great job. But I I don't know if it's the writing or just the chemistry between her and Chalamet. But
yeah,
I was not from Dune 1. And this is a qualm from Dune 1. I don't buy her as being in that role.
it's kind of like,
Part of it, I wonder if like she just like fit the bill they were looking for.
I mean, she's a star and she is a great, I mean, I think she's
Yeah, she's a big
fantastic.
name. She's a
She's
good
fantastic in
actress.
Euphoria. She fits the role
Yeah,
perfectly.
she's good in everything she's
Um,
in. And I'm not saying she's bad in this. I
it's
don't feel the chemistry
You
between
know what I
those
think
two actors at
it
all.
might be for me? It's kind of like, you remember when, like, Laura Dern was in that Star Wars movie? It's kinda like, I was like, I just don't believe Laura Dern in space. I feel like I'm looking at Laura Dern, and then I think that that's kind of what you get with Zendaya in this movie, and it's not just Zendaya, it's also Christopher Walken, which is like, why did you
Oh,
choose
yeah.
Christopher Walken? What are we doing?
Like, listen, if you choose Christopher Walken, it's because you want Christopher Walken.
Yeah,
Like, nobody is going to watch Christopher Walken on the screen and not think Christopher Walken.
yeah,
It's like
and
it's why you hire him because you want that character to be Christopher Walken. That's all he's
right.
got. I mean, I'm sure he's got more. I feel like everybody just asks him to do the same thing over and over again. And that was not the right call. That was
I
not
think
the emperor.
Yeah,
That
I
was
think you was
not
the
the
wrong choice.
emperor.
You could have picked a nobody, and I would have been happier.
Yeah, that would have been
Um,
preferable, to be honest.
yeah,
I'm
I
never
think
gonna
that,
hate on Christopher Walken, okay? I
I
love
mean, I
Christopher
love Christopher
Walken,
Walken, but he's like he's like, your father,
but
your father was a weak man. You know, it's like, bro, calm down. I thought of this one, which I enjoyed. It was that two Muad'Dibs fell in a bucket of cream.
oh, god damn it.
I just like, you can't not
The
see Christopher
first one
Walken.
quickly gave up and drowned.
But Paul Atreides.
He turned that cream into spice.
Exactly. So there are those things. Okay, but then this is a real concern I have for Dune Messiah. I don't think they should make Dune Messiah. If I were
Really?
if I had a conversation with Denis Villeneuve, which I would love to have, I would say, please don't do this. You've made two perfect films. Don't do this. I just finished reading Dune Messiah, and I really enjoyed the book. I thought it was really good, but there's a couple things. First, nothing really happens, which is similar to the first book, but in this one, it really is like the entire book takes place in the palace, and it's about like kind of intrigue, it's politics, it's there's a plot to assassinate Paul. Like, that's kind of the what the book is about, and it's all conversations, just a bunch of conversations in the palace is pretty much until the end when it does get pretty action packed, and I actually really enjoyed it. But the biggest worry I have, okay, actually, before I say the biggest worry I have, on top with that, it's a tonally just such a different film, because you think of how epic 1 and 2 are. This one is going to be like this smaller, like and maybe they will do a very intentional tonal shift that's just like makes it very drastic. You have to wait 12 years. I mean, you got to have Chalamet playing a grown ass man, which he still isn't really doing.
And how old is he? He's like in his 30s
he's probably
now.
25. I don't know how old he is. Let's see.
He's got to be late 20s, early 30s.
He's 28.
Zendaya. Okay, so he's 28 years old. He still is able to play a 16, 17, 18-year-old.
Right.
Zendaya is not going to look like her.
So you got to get
her character for another 20 years, 30 years at least.
Right.
Like,
which it sounds like Denny knows this, right? He has said in his interviews, like, I'm going to give it some time. We're going to make sure we have the right script before we do it. It sounds like it has pretty much been greenlit at this point, so it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to direct something else next. It sounds like I just saw. I don't know what it's called. I forget what it's called, but there's another movie he's signed on to direct next. So he's not jumping right into it. So maybe they'll give it a couple of years and then try to do it. So that's okay. But the biggest concern,
maybe they'll do a TV show though.
I don't think they're going to pivot to a TV show from.
Well, he was planning one after Dune 1 came out. He was planning a Bene Gesserit TV show, and that got greenlit, and then it got shot down. And honestly, I think that's why Dune 2 got made with the perspective of the Bene Gesserit, or like Villeneuve said that the Bene Gesserit are predominant in this film.
Yeah.
And I think that's wise because he wanted to do a Bene Gesserit TV series. And I think somewhere along the way got shot down.
That's so interesting because I feel like the Bene Gesserit are just as big in the book, and I feel like
they're a huge part of the book.
I mean, I don't feel like it's any more Bene Gesserit heavy than the books are from my perspective. But then again, I do need to reread the first book, I feel. But so okay. So my biggest concern about Dune Messiah is that one of the most important characters, and this is a spoiler for Dune Messiah, but one of the most important characters is Duncan Idaho. So we're going to be bringing back Jason Momoa, who I thought in the first movie was not the best, like probably the worst actor in the first movie. Like none of it, like you didn't believe a lot of what he said. It felt forced often. I didn't buy him.
I love Momoa, but I gotta be real. I agree with that statement. Much in the same regard, though, as I didn't buy Christopher Walken as the Emperor.
Sure.
It was like I was looking at, I wasn't looking at Duncan Idaho, which, come on, Frank.
What a name.
Your naming is terrible. Main character's name is fucking Paul and Jessica. Like, come on. But
Leto Atreides is a pretty dope name. I'll say
that's
Leto
a great
Atreides.
name.
All right, great name.
Great name. Why don't you switch him? Okay,
Oscar
have Leto be.
He knocks that role out of the park.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
No, but yeah. So Duncan Idaho, Jason Momoa. I felt like I was watching Jason Momoa. I don't really feel like he was acting. I feel like he was just like he memorized lines and he's just being himself.
Yeah, he's trying to have these emotional moments of like connecting with Paul. They're kind of trying to show that relationship, and it just didn't really ring true. And Messiah, basically, at the beginning of Dune Messiah, the people that want to kill Paul present him a gift, and it is the revived corpse of Duncan Idaho reanimated with a new personality. So his name is Hate, and he is like they call him a Gola is what it's called, but it basically he's like, they took Duncan Idaho's body and they infused it with, they made him a mentat and they made him all this other stuff and they brought him back to life. He still has all of the skills that Duncan Idaho had. Like he's still a great swordsman and all of that. but he's got a different personality and he's not there. So then the whole book, Paul is trying to bring Duncan Idaho back by like talking to him, by just basically saying, he keeps calling him Duncan Idaho. He says, "You're in there. I know you're in there." And he's trying to like pull him out. Right. And so there's a lot of this like internal struggle for that character. That character is just battling two personalities within one body and like trying to figure out who he is. And it's like,
And there's no way Momoa is
Jason
gonna
Momoa.
do that. Yeah, no.
Jason Momoa is the guy that we're counting on to play that role, and he's like the biggest part of the movie. Like he is the most important. The climax turns on his character. Everything that happens in that book comes down to Jason Momoa, and I can't imagine betting this fucking franchise on Jason Momoa. That just seems like a huge risk to me. I feel like you could just call it good, and that would be a much better choice in my opinion.
And turn Messiah into a TV series and cast a whole new cast.
Yeah,
all new actors.
Just be like, we're gonna go with somebody else.
Yeah, and I think it would be believable if you got people that look similar.
Who would you cast?
Right? Somebody. Shit, I don't know. Who would I cast? Bill Skarsgård as
Bill Skarsgård. No, he's got to be fit.
No, who would be a good future Paul? Paul 12 years later.
There's an interesting story I heard was that they had no backup plan if Chalamet said no. Villeneuve wanted Chalamet, and he was like, "This is the actor I want to play this role."
Did he work with him before?
I don't think so. I think he just was like, and I get it. I think Chalamet's perfectly cast. I can't think of anyone that could have played that role better. I think.
I definitely could think of that.
While there are moments of like where I think you said it, like the relationship between him and Zendaya, there's something that is just not fully believable, and it's probably because they're such good friends in real life. Like they're just actually friendly. That they aren't playing the love interest as well as they could. But otherwise, I think Chalamet is fantastic in both movies. Who are you looking for?
Just seeing if I could find someone real quick with the random Google, but not getting any ideas right now. So I don't have an answer for you.
Yeah, that's a tough question, to be honest.
It's tough, and you don't even honestly, I don't think you really need to have the actors really look like.
No,
they don't need to be lookalikes. They don't. No. I mean,
actually,
you probably would want to do the opposite. You probably want to make it completely different.
Totally.
Just because a TV show would be its own franchise, kind of. Well,
right.
Not franchise, but it would be its own thing. So if I was directing it, I would want to make everybody completely different.
Yeah. I did see a really interesting comparison where they just showed the actors from Dune 1984 and this Dune side by side, and they went through all the characters, and it's pretty interesting how similar the look of a lot of them are. And I think that there also is, I've seen also videos of where they compare just different shots from the movie side by side. And it's very clear that Villeneuve intentionally recreated some of the shots from the 1984 movie in this one. There's just there are definitely a bunch where it's just like almost a perfect match, which I think is really
I think that is really interesting, because I also have a point to make with that. Sure. Not that he stole, but he used the I think he must have used the Dune lookbook that lives on in the three major studios from the original Dune that was supposed to be made just like the year before Star Wars, or a couple years before Star Wars.
That failed.
Yeah, the one that never got made.
Which would make sense. I think he probably incorporated a bunch of this like past work to try to inform what he was doing, which
Which
I
is
think is
interesting
smart.
because that was another French director, I think, wasn't it?
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's this French director. I am upset that I can't remember his name. And he was it
Jodorowsky.
Jodorowsky?
Yeah,
That doesn't
Jodorowsky's
sound like
Dune,
a
because there's a
French name.
documentary. There's the documentary about it failing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Jodorowsky was the director. Alejandro
Yeah.
Jodorowsky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That guy. Yeah, that was a great documentary. If anybody is actually watching this conversation that we're having right now, go and watch the documentary about Jodorowsky's Dune. It is incredible, and I wish that exact Dune could get made as well, and just compare these two. But it's so cool. Like I was able to pull up his lookbook right now, and going through it is there's so many shots that are very similar to what we see from Villeneuve. I think he took a lot. I wish that he would have taken more costumes, to be honest. There's some fantastical costumes, very like He-Man type vibe to him.
I think that's what the 84 one feels like quite a bit, especially with, what was it, Sting as Fade Rotha. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Unreal.
Fucking Sting in it.
But
yeah, no,
but you'll like,
but the biggest part that I think he took from this lookbook was the Harkonnen's world. Because originally, like in this lookbook, the Harkonnen world was basically it was the guy that did the Alien movies, that did all of the set design for the Alien movies. He was a part of this first, and he used those very similar vibes that are in the Alien movies. And then this movie never got made, and this lookbook just existed in the three big studios, and so directors were able to go through it anytime they wanted to. And you can see a lot of things were stolen for Star Wars, a lot of things were used in Alien and a few other films throughout the ages. I'm really happy that he took that back for the Harkonnens. It was originally supposed to be there, and
like Baron Harkonnen's this
it.
big fat dude. I've just got it pulled up as well.
Yeah, that. But I'm more talking about that German goth vibe.
Yeah. Sure. I see that in one of the like storyboards. Like they kind of got the leather like the leather mask and stuff.
Yeah, all the black leather, all of the strange curvature, and everything being black. That was originally a German designer. I'm trying to find his name. Kevin McCory? Is that? I don't think that's Kevin McCory. Must have been a set designer, but he wasn't the artist behind it. I don't think. I'll have to find it. Maybe you can post down in the comments or something later. It'll take me a little bit to find it. It looks like I don't know, whatever my Google searching capabilities are, they're not good enough for finding his name.
No worries. We know no one's ever going to watch this live stream. Let's just put that out there right now. What will potentially get watched is when I edit the fuck out of it and it turns into YouTube Shorts. And like I showed you, like that one has like 6K. I think Dune could potentially get more. So when we cut it, we can that'll get more viewership, and then we can have links, or you can't really put links in the. I guess you could as like just text, but you can't click on it, unfortunately, which is annoying. But yeah, this is super interesting. You'll find
Swiss
this
artist H.R. Geiger. This is it. I found him. Sorry, I'll have to. I can send this to you. But H.R. Geiger. I can see Swiss, not German. Sorry. But yeah, so he was the original artist that came up with all of the Harkonnen shit, which was then used in Alien.
Alien. Yeah. Super interesting.
An art style known as biomechanical.
There is one where it's the alien from Alien, but it's got a dick coming out of its mouth. It's very interesting. Yeah, it's all very sexual. Like his design that was pulled for Alien also, like, you know how Alien's got the like long head, the back of it also is shaped like a dick.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at this
dicks.
Lots of dicks.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, like all that leather is also very like sexual. Like it's like a
very S&M.
Yeah, very interesting.
Which I mean, all of that works so well for the Harkonnens.
Yeah, totally.
Harkonnens.
That's an interesting thing that you said there, because I watched a clip from the '84 one, and they say it differently. I think they maybe say Harkonnen, and then in this they say Harkonnen. Like just the emphasis.
Yeah. Reading it, I always thought Harkonnen. I didn't think Harkonnen. It's like Harkonnen.
I'm not sure how I thought about it when I was reading it, to be honest with you. I read it because I had not read Dune until I heard that Denis Villeneuve was directing Dune, and then I was like, all right, I'm gonna read that book now. And so I read it. Yeah, I read it in the year or two before the movie came out, the first one. But I have no idea what was in my brain of how to pronounce that.
I got one for you. Older Paul, Zach Braff.
Get the fuck out of here.
Zach I want to watch that Dune Messiah.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do.
Dune Messiah is fucking wild. You should read the book for sure. I mean, I kind of want to just tell you everything about it, but you should read it.
I'll read it. Let me read it. I need something to read after I finish my current series. I'm reading this series, The Way of Kings.
Nice. I think I just saw a TikTok about that series saying it was great.
How thick that is.
It's a thick boy.
It's thick boy, and I have all 4.
Dang, that's a stack
over there. That's a stack. I'm through the first 2. I'm in the middle of the 3rd, and then I got the 4th after. It's like they're each like 1,200 pages.
Yeah.
I talk about world building.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I finished Dune Messiah 2 nights ago, and last night I almost just rolled right into Children of Dune. But I luckily had a library book that had just come available, and so I started that. So I'm not going to just sit.
Libby app.
Libby
app.
Yeah, it's called like Chain Gang All Stars or something like that. It's supposed to be about like gladiator, like futuristic gladiator type of shit. I don't know. It seems interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sci-fi gladiators.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. But it's also kind of like, I mean, I was high when I was reading it, and I'm only like 5 pages in, but it's like, it feels a lot like Infinite Jest in ways. Did you ever read any of Infinite Jest?
I got about 130 pages in and gave up.
Same. I think you and I did the same thing. I forgot if you had actually gotten into it.
I might have only gotten like 80 pages in.
Sure. But you know how there's like the year of the adult depend underpants or whatever, right? And it's like the years are named for advertising or whatever. Like that is part of it as well. Like there's this gladiator situation going on, but then they keep pausing for little like weird advertisement things. It's like, so it's kind of like a commentary on capitalism, it seems like, as well. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
But we were talking about this artwork, and I thought you would find this really interesting. When I first heard it, I was like, oh, I got to talk to Cecil about this. But then I was like, save it. I saw an interview with Villeneuve where he talked about his writing process and how he uses storyboards. And then he writes the script, then he storyboards it all out, and he talks about how much he's able to find in the storyboards of like, visual storytelling and props we're going to use, costumes we're going to use, all this stuff. But then he says that he takes the storyboards and then he rewrites the movie based on the storyboards. Or based on the things that he learned while storyboarding. He does another draft of the movie. That's what he did with Dune. I thought that was really interesting, and really interesting because you get so much more. He's getting so much more of like the visual language of the film, and like how to show and not tell is probably what's coming up a lot. Of like, oh, I didn't need all that dialogue. I can just show that with this shot. I thought that was really cool and something that was worth us giving a shot sometime.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, we should do that with our film.
Yeah.
I need to get Previs Pro, I think.
Yeah, that thing was cool.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
I need an iPad first before I do that.
Yeah.
Do proper to it. I mean, yeah, I already started storyboarding, but I only got like 6 storyboards done. Yeah, you've seen them all. I stopped after that.
Yeah.
I should get that going though. It's a lot of work, but definitely worth it in the end.
And it's something you can kind of do and while you do other things, potentially like watch TV or something. Just kind of like draw.
Yeah.
Another thought.
While I'm writing the script, like if I have writer's block, go back. Yeah, that's probably a great thing to do. Is like writing the script, come to a point where it's like, all right, I don't know what's next. Go back, start storyboarding up until that point, and maybe you'll know what's next by then.
Yeah, because your brain can be working. It's kind of like how your brain works in the shower, right? Like
left brain.
Your brain, you start drawing, and then like part of your brain is working on the ideas and like trying to figure it out unconsciously, right? It's interesting.
Maybe I need to start drawing in the shower.
There you go. Drawing in the shower with your hands and then typing the screenplay with your toes. Laptop
1 foot out of the shower.
Oh, 1 foot. Yeah, there you go. I like that.
Or just showers off and I take a chair and a laptop and just sit in the shower.
Just as like a location.
Effect, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's really about the echo,
It's about the echo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
I also think we need to fucking revisit Homefront. Civil War just came out. Oh, that's it right there. Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. For all the viewers watching, Homefront is Cecil and our first TV pilot. It's about World War III breaking out and how people handle it, and it's going to be a big hit.
Yeah, it is.
The frustrating thing is like, so Civil War just came out.
Everything we wrote already has come to pass.
I just watched after listening to that Jonah Nolan podcast. I just watched the first episode of Fallout.
That was a great podcast. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, it was. Did you? I actually wanted to ask you.
I haven't watched Fallout yet.
I watched the first episode last night. It's good.
Okay.
But also, like, I mean, it fucking opens with a nuclear bomb. Like that's literally the opening set piece. Is like bombs dropping. I hadn't played the game, and obviously that's what the whole show's about. But like, I just like, I'm like, man, it's just like that's our pilot too. But I did want to ask you after listening to that podcast. There's a moment where Jonah Nolan talks about how much he cares about the safety of his crew and the people on set, and I just wanted to get your reaction to that.
I think he cares more about. I don't know. I hope this does come back to bite me in the ass one day. Someone will find this random
You don't
clip.
have to say this on the internet. You can say this to me offline if you'd prefer.
No, it's fine. I don't mind it. Truth is truth. I think at least while I was, working for him, I think that he cared most about getting the work done.
Yeah.
First and foremost, safety is a secondary priority. But at the same time, he has enough people working for him, and he has enough money to throw at those people to make sure that they're following the proper safety precautions,
Yeah.
and at the very least that they've signed the paperwork stating that they will follow all the safety precautions. I
Right.
mean, it's he's no different than anybody else in Hollywood that is just trying to get their shit made, you know.
Sure.
Probably one of the biggest differences is that for him, he had this demeanor on set all the time of, this is what I want and this is going to get done. If it doesn't get done the way that I want it, or if the people around me don't convince me otherwise that there is a better way, then I'll fire whoever I have to fire and hire whoever can get it done. Like when
Yeah.
you have that much money given to you by a studio that you can just, push people aside and find the right person to get it done, kind of
Yeah.
thing. It's always, that was always number one priority, was get it done.
Sure.
I mean, safety is the number two priority on every single set. I'm not saying that Nolan is any different from
Yeah.
anyone else. Everybody's that way. Every production company, every director, every person is safety second, get the work done first,
Yeah.
And that comes down to, hours, like we were working insane hours and I came in on later seasons of the show. Like I heard horror stories from the first couple seasons, um,
Really.
where people were working 18, 20-hour days with having to drive home for an hour and then drive back for an hour. So like, when did they sleep?
Right.
And that happened a lot when I was working, and the studios literally had to cut back hours after somebody ran their car off the road at 3 a.m. because they were exhausted from working the entire week, 16 to 20-hour days a week, and so then the studios had to like cut back and be like, okay, like, yeah, maybe you should cut this part out. But maybe don't put this
No.
on the
I mean,
internet. We're live, but
yeah, I don't know if I have the ability to cut it out at this point.
no, it's fine.
Other than to
I
pull
mean,
the full video down, which I can do. I
Obvious-
don't really care about the live video.
yeah, no, it's fine. I mean,
I don't think
What
you've said
happened?
anything I don't think you've said anything offensive.
no, it wasn't incriminating. Everything
think
that
that-
happened, and everybody, nobody died, nobody got that hurt or anything. It was just, I don't think he's any different than anybody else in Hollywood who everybody says, oh yeah, safety first, always, human lives before anything else. And
Yeah.
in reality, it's like, no, that's not true for anyone. So
Did you see that documentary about the guy on the stuntman on the Harry Potter movies? That like
didn't he
got
get
paralyzed.
paralyzed? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty powerful documentary,
Rough.
and it also I
didn't
think
watch
is just like it goes to show the freak accidents that can happen too. I mean,
Oh yeah, there's tons of
you could tell everybody in that group, because it shows all of them working together. Because I think it happened on the fifth or sixth movie. So like they'd all been working together for so long. They loved each other. The boss, the guy that ran the stunt team, was obviously cared very much about these guys, was trying to take care of them and make sure they were safe. And like something just went wrong, and the guy got paralyzed. And I think the boss, the guy that was running it, never forgave himself, right? Like this is like, that's the worst thing that could ever happen on your watch, is that somebody, gets paralyzed for the rest of their lives. That's certainly, safety is something that they care a lot about. So,
yeah, and I guess that's what I mean is Nolan is able to, and anybody with that amount of money behind them, they're able to hire people where safety is the number one concern.
Yeah.
And so that way for them, they can focus on the creativity.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, maybe after some of the things that happened, after you experience a few things that aren't so safe and people getting hurt or almost getting hurt, and then, production companies have to scale back the amount of work that you're doing a day because it's too much or whatever. I mean, maybe after those kind of things, your brain starts thinking, oh, okay, I need to take safety. I need to bump safety up to number 1 or number 2 if it wasn't up there already. So, I mean, I obviously am never going to be able to speak to his or anybody else's minds.
Sure.
Because I'm not in them. But at the same time, from what I've seen from everybody working in Hollywood, is that safety on set is incredibly important and taken seriously by many people that are paid to take it seriously, and those that are paid for creative aspects of getting the work done, usually that's the last thing on their mind.
Yeah.
That's just what I've seen. And that's, I don't know. I mean, that's probably how it should be.
That's not their job.
It makes sense. Yeah.
Their job is to make the show, and they hire people whose job it is to make sure that it's safe.
And to be fair, when there was something that was like, if Jonah was on set, and like, I mean, I was right in the thick of things. So I saw this is like firsthand account of like when he was on set and he wanted something done, especially stunt wise, he would ask the safety people, he would ask his ADs, and he would ask his stunt teams, like, can this be done? And if it was too unsafe to do it, like too unsafe, he would be told, this is too unsafe, we can't do it. And he'd be like, can't you sure? Like nothing can be done. And if nothing could be done to make it safer, then it'd be like, okay, well, what's next? How do we get around this in a creative way? Like, what do we do that is safe enough, that is still as cool? So, I'm definitely not trying to talk any smack.
Totally.
Like he certainly, I don't think that he purposely put anybody in danger. And I don't think that's ever the case. I don't think anyone, like people that like have no care for human lives on set, they don't usually get hired back on.
Yeah.
So like my only point was, everybody says safety's number 1, and I don't believe a single person that ever says that. When
unless
they're in a
safety
directing
expert.
role.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless like that is literally their job. They're the on-set safety, like, and yeah, unless they're a first AD, I don't believe you.
Yeah. But all of that goes
Anyway,
back
that was a
to
tangent.
Homefront. Well, because
Yeah,
so I mentioned earlier, Denis Villeneuve is gonna, like, I just saw that he signed on for another movie. It's called, he's adapting a nonfiction book called Nuclear War: A Scenario, which is apparently a book about what will happen if nuclear war hits. And so apparently he's adapting that. I'm just like, motherfucker. So I just like, I'm like, man, we never really did try to shop it around. And so I mentioned a guy on my team at work. He wrote a horror film got it in the hands of some people. They're talking about, like, seriously, there's serious conversations of it actually getting produced, and there's serious conversations about him directing it. Like,
Yeah.
it's like actually things are really moving in that direction. I'm just like, motherfucker, we never really pushed to shop it, and now I'm just seeing all this shit that's getting made that is just in the exact same vein. And it still is something that we could probably make relevant.
I think so. I think one of our biggest issues for not shopping it around was like all of the shit that we wrote started happening in real
Yeah.
life.
Oh, totally.
And we were like, what the fuck? Like the Hong Kong riots. Like, are you kidding me? Like, we just wrote this and now it's happening. And what the hell?
Yeah.
And like things started actually happening. And then it got to a point where it's like, all right, well, if we're going to shop this around, we're going to have to rework a lot of things. You know, we're going to have to bring COVID back into the world, kind of thing, you know, and write that
Yeah.
in. And we're going to have to
Which
do
we
this.
did do, actually, because
I
we were
think
running.
we threw in a mask or two, kind of thing, to
Yeah.
show that post-COVID world. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that we got in our heads about it too much. And I think we could probably still shop it around, because at the end of the day, it just shows our level of screenwriting.
Right.
If nothing else, you know, like we can shop it around, and obviously things can be changed. It's not a big deal to change events around or
Yeah.
add more. But
Totally.
yeah, I mean, the point of shopping it around is to show that we actually have talent.
Totally.
You know.
Yeah. I the way I started this live streaming, actually, the first thing I did was live streaming me trying to screenwrite with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And I have thought of it as a good forcing function to, like, just do some work and, like, work on things. So I wanna get back into the screenwriting thing and get doing it more. So we should talk about what we can pull up. Obviously, Blood and Thunder is you know,
That's my number one priority, I think.
yeah,
When it comes
understandably.
to writing.
Because we need to
I
have a
just want to
finished
finish
product. Yeah,
finish it.
totally.
Needs to get done. And then we can, you know, once that gets done, we can move on from that finally and start working on things that are a bit more of interest.
Totally.
I mean, I don't know. I'm super interested in making that film.
Yeah.
But it could be years before it gets made, if it does. So might as
Yeah.
well just finish it and then move on to the next thing as quick as possible while trying to shop that around.
Totally. I mean, it's like in that Jonah Nolan podcast, he talked about how Christopher Nolan wrote a movie about The Aviator. What's the
Oh yeah, Howard Hughes movie.
about Howard Hughes, and he talked about it was the best script he'd ever read. Well, that never got made because The Aviator came out, and he took a bunch of pieces from it and used it for Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
So, like, that's the kind of thing that could happen. Anyways, I think we should get off of live. I would love to keep talking if you are down, but thank you to all the people that watched. We really appreciate your viewership and time. And
is there anybody on?
No, there has not been anyone on this entire time.
Okay,
as,
good.
expected.
I'm happy about that.
Could you imagine if the last 30 minutes of this conversation people were watching? Anyways, this has been the Blaine Nicholls Show. This has been Cecil Trail, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks for having me on, bud.
Because I'm full screen, I don't know how to end the stream. There it goes.